Robert Redford is one of the last great lions of Hollywood's golden past. He's a man who has lived through the glare of stardom, the weight of expectation, and the quiet toll of personal tragedy. At 89 years old, he has very little left to prove. Yet, even now, one question has continued to follow him. What was his real relationship with Paul Newman? For over half a century, fans and journalists speculated about the two icons. They were partners in some of the most beloved films ever made, men whose faces became immortal in cinema history. But were they just colleagues, rivals, or something more enduring, something Hollywood rarely produces? True, lasting friendship. Now, as Robert Redford reflects on his long life, he has finally answered. And what he reveals is more intimate, more human, and more moving than anyone expected. This is the story of how two very different men found each other, built a bond stronger than fame, and left behind a legacy that outlives them both. Redford's journey didn't begin with Hollywood glamour. Born Charles Robert Redford Jr. on August 18, 1936, in Santa Monica, California, he grew up in a modest home. His mother, Martha, was a gentle, artistic spirit, a freelance illustrator who filled his childhood with sketches, colors, and creativity. His father, Charles Sr., was the opposite, a chemist, disciplined and pragmatic. Redford often described himself as caught between worlds. From his mother, he inherited imagination. From his father, the stubborn determination to keep moving forward. At Van Nuys High School, Redford was athletic and charming, but also restless. Teachers found him distracted, more interested in baseball and sketching than in studying. After graduation, he tried to follow the straight path. He enrolled at the University of Colorado to study architecture. On paper, it made sense, a stable, respectable career. But Redford felt trapped. He drank heavily, partied too much, and lost his scholarship. Looking back, he admitted those years could have destroyed him. But instead of collapsing, he left America and wandered through Europe, living as a struggling painter. Those bohemian years taught him something no classroom ever could: how to rely on himself, how to embrace failure, and how to create from nothing. Breaking into acting wasn't easy. Redford started small: television guest appearances, theater work, bit parts in live dramas. He had the looks, but producers questioned if he had the presence to carry a film. By the early 60s, he began turning heads on Broadway. His performance in Barefoot in the Park, 1963, opposite Elizabeth Ashley, was a sensation. Redford's natural charm and timing showed he could hold an audience's attention night after night. But Hollywood remained skeptical. Unlike many stars, Redford wasn't loud, brash, or eager to sell himself. He was private, sometimes even aloof. He didn't fit the standard mold. Meanwhile, Paul Newman was already a giant. Handsome, confident, and magnetic, Newman was one of the top stars of the late 50s and 60s. He had the hustler, cool-hand Luke, and a string of hits behind him. He was older, established, and adored by critics and audiences alike. So when fate brought Newman and Redford together, it seemed an unlikely pairing. The year was 1969. Hollywood was looking for a new kind of Western, one that wasn't about square-jawed heroes, but about flawed men caught in a changing world. George Roy Hill directed Butch Cassidy in The Sundance Kid, and Paul Newman was already set as Butch. For the role of Sundance, studio executives wanted a big star, someone who could match Newman's fame. They considered Warren Beatty and Steve McQueen, but Hill fought for Robert Redford, a relative newcomer. The executives doubted him. Was he strong enough? Charismatic enough? Could he stand beside Newman without disappearing? History answered. The film exploded into a phenomenon. Audiences loved the pairing. Newman's Butch was witty, clever, always scheming. Redford's Sundance was stoic, deadly with a gun, but quietly loyal. The contrast worked perfectly. It wasn't just that the film made money. It redefined the buddy dynamic on screen. And off-screen, something deeper happened. Newman and Redford found themselves laughing together, trading jabs and slipping into an easy friendship. While the press speculated about rivalry, the truth was something else. They had chemistry not only in front of the camera, but behind it too. Hollywood thrives on rivalry. Magazines framed Newman and Redford as competitors. Who was better looking? Who was the real star of the film? Who deserved more credit? But Redford later explained that competition never existed. Newman wasn't threatened by him. Instead, he welcomed him in. Newman, known for his pranks, once hid Redford's motorcycle to get a laugh. Redford retaliated by nailing Newman's dressing room door shut. They teased each other relentlessly, but beneath the jokes was trust. They said we were rivals, Redford once said. But the truth is, Paul made me better. He challenged me, and I challenged him. We never had to say it out loud. It was just there. It was rare in Hollywood, where egos clashed daily. Their connection was different. In 1973, lightning struck again. The sting paired them as conmen pulling off a massive swindle. The film was stylish, clever, and brilliantly acted. Audiences loved seeing them together again. Critics praised their effortless timing. The film won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. And yet, they refused to exploit it. Studios begged for sequels. Fans demanded more. But Newman and Redford resisted. They knew the secret of their magic. Less was more. If they did it too often, it would lose its power. So they kept their collaborations rare, and therefore legendary. Their friendship wasn't built on movie sets alone. Away from the spotlight, they connected as men. Newman was bold, outgoing, and playful. Redford was thoughtful, private, and reflective. On paper, opposites. In reality, perfect complements. They talked about family, politics, and the pressures of fame. They could be brutally honest with each other. Newman once told Redford he was too guarded. Redford told Newman he sometimes coasted on charm. Those kinds of conversations could destroy a friendship. For them, it made it stronger. They also shared a desire to use their fame for more than fame itself. Newman founded Newman's Own, donating all profits to charity. Redford created the Sundance Institute in 1980, building a home for independent film. Both believed success meant responsibility. That belief became part of the glue holding them together. Life gave both men achievements, but also heartbreak. Redford's first son, Scott, died in infancy in The loss scarred him for life. Years later, his son James battled liver disease and died in Newman knew grief as well. In 1978, his only son, Scott Newman, died at just 28. Newman never fully recovered. He later founded the Scott Newman Foundation to help others struggling with addiction. Redford and Newman rarely spoke publicly about these wounds, but they didn't need to. They knew. Their shared pain gave them an understanding few others could touch. The bond worked because they were so different. Paul Newman loved the spotlight. He raced cars, cracked jokes, and leaned into his image as Hollywood's blue-eyed rebel. Robert Redford avoided the spotlight. He escaped to the mountains of Utah, painted in solitude, and valued privacy above publicity. One loud, one quiet, one spontaneous, one careful. Together they created balance. Newman pulled Redford into laughter. Redford pulled Newman into thoughtfulness. It was a friendship that filled in the missing pieces. In the 1980s, their paths reflected their shared values in different ways. Newman built a philanthropic empire. Through Newman's Own, he gave away over $500 million to charity. He proved that celebrity brands could be more than profit machines. They could change lives. Redford built Sundance. The institute and festival gave young filmmakers a chance to be heard. Directors like Quentin Tarantino and Steven Soderbergh owe careers to the platform Redford created. Different missions, same belief. Use success to leave the world better. At 89, Redford finally spoke openly about Paul Newman. He was more than a friend. He was like a brother. Redford revealed, "We had this unspoken understanding. We didn't have to explain ourselves. It was just there." He remembered how Newman never let fame change him, how he gave without expecting credit, how he taught Redford that true success was not measured in money or awards, but in kindness and integrity. As he reflected, Redford's voice carried gratitude and grief. "Paul made everyone around him better," he said. "I was lucky to be one of them." Hollywood has seen many partnerships, but Redford and Newman remain unmatched. Not just because of their films, but because of their bond. They weren't rivals. They weren't just co-stars. They were brothers. And now, with Robert Redford's confession, the world finally understands. Behind the roles, behind the fame, behind the myths, there were two men who found in each other the rarest thing Hollywood can give: real friendship. A friendship that outlives the box office, the awards, and even time itself.